this was a video that I honestly expected to never have to make. If you've been to one of my panels, you know that I sort of revel in not being famous. Don't get me wrong, I'm grateful for the fans that I do have and the audience that I've amassed over the years, but I've always said that I'm grateful for not being famous, mostly because it allows me the freedom to sort of do whatever I want. So I can talk about hot button issues like feminism and representation and being queer in America without a great deal of backlash. Don't get me wrong, I get my trolls, but in a far smaller number than the average person of color, female presenting queer creator online. Now, by the title, you may be assuming that I'm talking about someone else. And for a little while, I might be. But for now, I actually want to talk about my experience with getting canceled, which I did not think was going to be a thing, and definitely not over what ended up causing my, let's go ahead and call a spade, cancellation. So this requires an uncomfortable amount of preamble, which I do certainly hope that you join me for. So a little while ago, I wrote over on my blog a post about Mason's Cavies, which is helmed by Sophie and her husband, Mr. Mason, and they live in England and they have entirely too many guinea pigs. And for a very, very long time, they were a pretty integral part of my mental health routine because it was nice to just watch some guinea pigs frolic in the English countryside. Now, over a series of months, a lot seemed to happen over at Mason's Cavies. There was an increased sort of push for sponsorship. There was a string of mysterious deaths. There was just a lot of drama, and there was a lot of Sophie sort of going on about how there were people that were reporting her to the RSPCA and everything like that, and just there was a lot of drama. And as a blogger and as a writer, I did what I do, which is I wrote about it. So I took some time and I wrote a blog post called My Shockingly Complex Feelings About Mason's Cavies, in which I outlined all those things. And I started by saying that, honestly, I don't think that Sophie and her husband are bad people. I think that the guinea pigs receive excellent care. I don't think that the mysterious deaths are anything more than mysterious deaths. But I do think that they have a bit of a penchant for drama. And if you don't want drama, you do not facilitate or have that exist. That's how I ended my blog post. And I sort of, in the back of my mind, was always a little bit worried about that. Because especially when I blog, it's not that I don't blog about current events or current people. It's just that I try to do things a little bit more tactfully and carefully, just because I know that in theory, someone could respond to that. Now, time passed, as it does, and I did get a response from Sophie Mason. And that response was her sharing my article, my blog post, on her page that has thousands of galvanized followers primed and ready to tell me how terrible I was for having an opinion. And oh Lord, did they. So I need to set the stage for you. I'm at work and my phone goes off. I get an alert from WordPress saying that my stats have spiked. I do okay as a blogger. I haven't been interested in monetization, so I do okay. In that day alone, I got triple the amount that I usually receive when it comes to views that I do for a month. One would say that that is good. It sent me into a panic attack while still in the office. That's when the comments started to roll in. Most of them were mixed. Actually, the post by that time was months old, so I actually had some people on that post that had already commented and talked about how they either agreed with me. Well, by months old, most of them agreed with me. Now, after Mrs. Mason posted it, I had a lot more people that didn't agree with me, and they were very eager to tell me how they felt. Now, I suppose the only benefit is that when your audience is mostly older British women, that you don't get a lot of slurs or horrible name calling, but I definitely did get a lot of comments that were character assassination, calling me out of my name, and were quite rude. I got messages on Facebook, on Instagram. It was exhausting, and more importantly, it was terrifying. It turned something that I love doing into something that I was afraid of, because all it would take to dismantle my existence would be if someone had shared that to my boss or to someone else or found out where I work. Now, luckily, I'm very, very careful because I've been doing this for a while and that risk isn't very high. But as soon as I started getting comments in, immediately I panicked. Now, here's where I also get personal because I think that this is something that is a shocking part of cancel culture. This all happened the day before the anniversary of my father's death. Now, I'm sure that no one who sent me negative comments on that day could have known that about me. However, I was already in a pretty emotional and fragile mindset, and then I received comment upon comment about how awful I was. It was scary, and I was afraid to post on my blog for a while. I don't think I ever really took time off, but I definitely had, and honestly to this day, kind of still have a bit of writer's block when it comes to it. So this is going to lead me into cancel culture a little bit. Cancel culture is a fairly new phenomenon, and it's sort of when mobs or galvanized people get together and they decide they're going to cancel or end the career of someone they feel needs to be canceled. Now, sometimes that has worked for good. I don't have examples because I don't want to give any of these people credence. ContraPoints has an amazing video where she talks about her cancellation, and she does a much, much better job at this than I ever could. Natalie Wynn, I do stan. But in all honesty, I think the biggest thing that continues to play over in my mind with cancellation is it's a comment that I saw a lot, which was, you really should think about how your words affect other people. I got variations of that comment all throughout the day, and honestly through a lot of the process of people saying how mean and terrible I was to Sophie for posting on my blog my own opinions. But what struck me was just the blatant hypocrisy of that. No one was nice to me or considered how their words affected me. No one thought about what my mental state would be doing. No one thought about how these words would affect me. They just said every unfettered thought that they imagined. And I was supposed to deal with it. Which is why in the comments I'm so balanced. I try to be respectful because in all honesty, they came to my blog with something to say. And as blog poster, it is somewhat my responsibility to acknowledge them. But also, and you might notice the amount of comments is actually pretty low for me calling this a canceling. I deleted every comment that was flat out mean, and I deleted any comment that was needlessly cruel or mean about Sophie Mason, because that's not what I was here to do. That was never the point of my blog post. It was never a takedown piece or a call out piece. It was simply saying, I think that she has fostered a bit of a culture of drama around her. And if any of you who decided to cancel me are watching or listening, you've proven my point. Sophie had no need to post my blog. None. I wasn't mean, I wasn't cruel, and she had to know what would happen when she did that. She has spent, at this stage, years building an audience that is primed and ready to defend her at any cost. She knew that she was feeding me to the lions. Even if in the post when she shared it initially was, well, you can't please them all, shrug. She knew metaphorically that she was feeding me to the lions. She knew that. Which is why I reported her page for harassment on Facebook. Because that's what it is. It's harassment. Let's call a spade here. She had no business posting that article, which was balanced, fair, and honestly, my opinion. I'm far from famous, and I'm not with any major publication. That was my personal blog. I'm not with a magazine in that instance. No other publication was supporting me or telling me that I needed to write this. It was just my opinion, in which honestly most of it was favorable, balanced, and kind. So, again, if you are a fan of Sophie and of Mason's Cavies and you're listening, you've proven my point. There is a culture of drama that surrounds her and that page. And for any of you who have told me that I need to be careful about my words or watch my words, I would encourage you all to do the same. Canceling is a wildfire. I get it. We all feel the need to protect what is important to us, and we all feel the need to defend those who we think are defenseless. But no one who has hundreds of followers and thousands of fans and is collecting money from their fans needs to be defended in such a way. Celebrities don't need to be taken down a peg. We're all just human. Sometimes we can use these outrage machines for good, and sometimes real and genuine change has come from this. But very rarely has any good ever come out of lobbing hatred towards each other. Revolutions do take quite a bit of effort, and oftentimes that means that people get hurt. But there's nothing revolutionary about name-calling and being cruel to a writer who is mourning the loss of her father. There's nothing brave or even really supportive to the original creator about saying something cruel to someone just because you disagree with them. There's nothing heroic about that at all. I'll never advocate that, ever. And if any of my fans are listening, I don't want you then to go and mass report Sophie or anything like that. I wish the Masons no ill will. I just know that I no longer emotionally, spiritually, or physically can support them anymore. This experience was draining and exhausting and changed how I write, how I feel. For the first time in years, I was afraid of my phone. Every notification was potentially something that could end my career or my life as I knew it. I was afraid of increasingly cruel and terrifying rhetoric. I was scared of any notification, any blip, any vibrate of that device that connects me to the outside world. I was afraid of an audience that I have spent 7 years building up, and more importantly, it made me doubt my own work. I had several people that I trust and that I love read over that blog post, and no one could find any fault in what I did. I was essentially gaslit into thinking that I had done something that I didn't by a faceless, nameless crowd of people who by no means had my best interest at heart. They were just agents of a higher power, one that apparently has rallied around a bunch of guinea pigs in England. Now, I'm okay moving forward. I've been very, very candid about my struggle with mental illness and with grief, with anxiety and with depression. And I think it's through those lenses that I found it was so important to talk about this. Because to reiterate a point, as much as I was told to be careful with my words, no one was careful with theirs when it came to me. And I am a person who has been very honest about having mental illness. I could not imagine, even to someone who wasn't sick, saying something cruel to them like that. Even when I don't agree with people online. If you've ever followed me on Twitter and you see how I argue, I'm always very methodical and careful about it. Because I know that on the other end of that post is a person. I might not agree with them, but there's ways to show disagreement. There's ways to have conversations like that. And honestly, sometimes it's just none of your gosh darn business. So that's a little video on surviving canceling. I'm back to blogging. I feel better. I found other cute animals that are much, much better. And so far have owners that are not demagogic rulers of what is essentially a Cavi-related cult. Thanks for listening, everyone. Hopefully the next video will be a little bit more cheery. See you guys next time.